Have you ever looked at your shadow and felt like it wasn't quite yours? I used to think it was just a trick of the light, an optical illusion. That was before my shadow started having a mind of its own. It all began subtly. I'd be walking down the street, and my shadow would linger a moment too long by a lamppost. Or I'd be sitting at my desk, and I'd catch its silhouette out of the corner of my eye, head tilted as if listening to something I couldn't hear. At first I brushed it off. I was stressed, overworked, probably just seeing things. My doctor said the same, prescribing rest and less caffeine. But it kept happening, and the actions became more deliberate, more pointed. One evening, I was making dinner. I reached for a knife, and my shadow on the wall behind me flinched back, its hand shape recoiling in what looked like fear. I froze, knife in hand, staring at the dark shape. It stayed perfectly still, as if holding its breath. I put the knife down, and my shadow relaxed. My heart was pounding. This wasn't just my imagination. Something was terribly wrong. The next day it led me somewhere. I was walking home, and my shadow suddenly stretched out, pointing insistently towards a dark, narrow alleyway I always avoided. I tried to ignore it, to keep walking, but it felt like I was pulling against an invisible rope. The shadow refused to follow me. Its form stuck, pointing into the darkness. A cold dread washed over me, but a stronger curiosity pushed me forward. I took a deep breath and stepped into the alley. The air was thick with the smell of damp brick and garbage. My shadow moved ahead of me, its form dancing and shifting against the grime-covered walls. It stopped at a specific spot, right next to a large, overflowing dumpster. It began to point again, this time at the ground, right beside the dumpster's rusty wheels. I hesitated, my mind screaming at me to turn back, to run. But my shadow was persistent, its finger jabbing at the same spot over and over. Kneeling down, I cautiously brushed away some loose gravel and old leaves. Underneath, the ground was slightly disturbed. I dug with my fingers, the damp earth cold against my skin. My fingertips hit something hard. It was a small metal object. I pulled it out and wiped it clean on my jeans. It was a locket, tarnished and old-fashioned. My shadow on the wall seemed to nod, a slow, deliberate motion. I clicked the locket open. Inside, there was a faded picture of a woman I didn't recognize, smiling. On the other side, an inscription, "To Eleanor, my forever. J." Who was Eleanor? And who was J? I had no idea, but I knew this locket was a clue. My shadow had led me to it for a reason. That night I couldn't sleep. I spent hours online searching for any connection, any missing person named Eleanor. Nothing. It felt like a dead end. But my shadow wasn't done with me yet. The following morning, as I was getting dressed, my shadow did something new. It mimicked the act of writing on the wall. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Then it pointed to my bookshelf. I walked over, and it pointed specifically to an old leather-bound journal my grandfather had given me. I hadn't opened it in years. I pulled it from the shelf, a layer of dust puffing into the air. My shadow grew still, watching. I opened the journal to a random page. It was filled with my own teenage ramblings. I started to close it, frustrated, but my shadow's arm shot out, its finger pointing to the very back of the book. Tucked into a small pocket on the inside back cover was a folded, yellowed newspaper clipping. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The headline read, "Local woman vanishes without a trace." The date was from 20 years ago. The woman's picture stared back at me. It was Eleanor, the woman from the locket. The article detailed her disappearance, mentioning she was last seen near the old warehouse district, not far from my apartment. The police had a person of interest, a man named Jonathan, or Jay, her fiancé, but they never had enough evidence to charge him. He had an alibi. He claimed he was at a friend's house all night. Suddenly, it all clicked. My shadow wasn't my shadow. It was a memory, an echo of a soul. Could it be Jonathan's, or someone else who witnessed what happened? I went back to the alleyway, the locket heavy in my pocket. This time, I looked at everything through a new lens. My shadow didn't point to the locket's spot. Instead, it moved to the brick wall and began to tap, 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 tap. A rhythmic, deliberate pattern. It was tapping on one specific brick that looked slightly looser than the others. My fingers found the edge of the brick. It wiggled. With a bit of effort, I pulled it free. Behind it, in the dark cavity, was a small cloth-wrapped bundle. I carefully pulled it out. Inside was a set of keys and a single folded piece of paper. A confession. It was from Jonathan. He admitted everything. He hadn't been with his friend. He had been there with Eleanor. There was a fight, an accident, he wrote. He panicked and hid her car. The keys were to a storage unit. The confession painted a tragic picture. But the most chilling part was the last line. The guilt follows me like a shadow I can never escape. My blood ran cold. I looked at my own shadow, now still and calm against the wall. This wasn't Jonathan's shadow. This was something else, a witness. I took the evidence to the police. The cold case was reopened. They found Eleanor's car in the storage unit, just as the note said. The evidence was overwhelming. Justice for Eleanor was finally within reach. But one question still haunted me. Whose shadow was this? A few weeks later, I was walking past that same alleyway. I glanced in, and for the first time, my shadow didn't pull me toward it. It stayed right by my side. As the sun set, casting long shapes across the pavement, my shadow briefly separated from my feet. It turned, and for a split second, it wasn't my silhouette. It was the faint outline of a different man. Smaller, older. He tipped a non-existent hat towards me, a gesture of thanks, before melting back into my own form, finally at peace. It was the shadow of a homeless man who used to sleep in that alley. He must have seen everything that night, a silent witness unable to speak. His lingering spirit, his shadow, had latched onto me, using me to bring the truth to light. My shadow is my own again. But now, when I see it, I don't just see a dark shape. I see a reminder that secrets can't stay buried forever, and sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. Thanks for watching this story unfold with me. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. See you next time.